Every time I told anyone that I was working on dogs, the first thing they would do was pull out their smartphone, show me a picture of their dog, and tell me all about it. And I'm sitting there as a scientist going, that's all the information that I want, is everything you just told me, but it's not written down anywhere. Darwins Arc is our community science project where we reach out directly to dog owners and ask them to participate in our research.
What we're increasingly seeing is science like this project, which is a citizen science project, where owners are more than happy to spend 2 hours in front of their computer and answer 117 questions about their dog, more than happy to get that Q-tip and do the swab.
I reached out to the community of applied animal behavior experts, and these are people who work in things like dog training. And I said, we're interested in traits that differ between breeds, were easy for owners to identify, and that people were unlikely to try and train their dog to do it or train their dog not to do it. Basically, we want things that are genetic, that are heritable. And they came up with this fantastic list of questions.
Does your dog like to play with toys, and is your dog friendly with strangers? But there were also questions like, does your dog circle before he poops? When you have such a huge data set like this, they're looking at descriptions of thousands of dogs and genome sequences of almost 2,000 dogs. Stuff is going to start to shake out.
We found out that behavior in dogs is very complicated, which is not surprising. Behavior in everything is very complicated. So we had these behavioral factors that we scored each dog on, and each factor is actually a bunch of different survey questions that are all asking sort of the same thing. What we saw out of these 8 factors is that there were a few of them, like whether your dog was interested in playing with toys and how trainable your dog was. Some of the breeds seemed to be more different from other dogs on those particular traits. And then there were others that seemed to have much less of a signal off of them. And one of the ones that didn't really seem to differ between breeds much at all, the one that actually scored the lowest out of those 8 factors, was one that we'd called agonistic threshold. And that's the kind of set of questions that's all related to how your dog reacts to something it's surprising or unexpected in their environment, including whether they kind of react aggressively to it or not. There doesn't really seem to be much there. It seems like that's got a pretty large environmental component to it. You can't really predict what an individual dog's behavior is going to be like accurately from their breed ancestry alone. It's much too complicated.
Most of the breeds we think of today, whether it's German Shepherds or Labrador Retrievers or Border Collies, trace back only about 160 years to the Victorian era, where there was a lot of really intensive breeding for what dogs look like, and dog shows were getting really popular.
That's a very short period of time in terms of evolution. But it turns out that dogs were domesticated from wolves something like 10 or 20,000 years ago. And so probably at some point, people started favoring dogs that had behaviors that were useful to them. Eventually, you had these kind of working populations of dogs. You have herding dogs, you have livestock guarding dogs, you've got guard dogs. And those have probably been around for a very long time. If you start with a group of dogs that are bred as a working population of herding dogs and you establish a breed from them, you will have a population of dogs that are more likely to be herding type behaviors. One of the reasons that we study dog genetics at all is that we're interested in whether understanding how genes shape behaviors and behavioral disorders in dogs might actually help us learn something about things like psychiatric diseases in people.
Dogs look a lot different than us, but they actually share the vast majority of their genes with us. And so it's always really surprising to sort of break down these species barriers. One of the really cool things that the researchers also found was they found at least 11 new spots in dog DNA that are tied to behavior. And they've found some really cool links to human behavior. So they found a new region of dog DNA that seems to be involved with howling, and it's related to a spot in human DNA that's involved in speech and language. They found a new spot in dog DNA that seems to be related to human sociability, which seems to be related to learning in humans.
2,000 dogs is a pretty remarkable number to be able to do that with. For context, in humans, when they study complex behaviors, they often need study sizes of hundreds of thousands and even millions of people. I encourage everybody to go sign up for Darwin's Arc, because the more dogs, the better at this point in time. Somebody asked me once how many dogs I wanted, and I said, well, ideally, all of them would be great.
While this study is certainly surprising and bound to be controversial, even the authors admit, this is just the beginning, and potentially with larger sample sizes, they may start to see correlations that they're not seeing now. The more genetic information, the more of a foothold other scientists are going to have for teasing out these genes that are responsible for behavior or potentially psychological issues or behavioral issues and things like that, both in dogs and in people.
Well, it's not really a secret anymore because I keep telling everybody. But my dirty secret as a dog genetics person was that I have never actually owned a dog. I own 3 cats. They are fantastic. And I would love to have a cat genetics project one day.